Leadership isn't about titles, it's about service. It's about showing up for people and fighting for a future that works for everyone. Amanda Edwards has spent her life doing just that, listening to her community, rolling up her sleeves, and making change where it matters most. She's a leader who believes in progress rooted in people, not politics. Her story is one of vision, persistence, and heart. From tackling the challenges that face our neighborhoods to building opportunities that lift families, Amanda has always stood with her community. In this two-part series, we follow Amanda's journey, her fight, and her hope for a brighter tomorrow. This is the story of Amanda Edwards for Congress.
From my uncle's fifth ward shoe shop to my father's battle with cancer, I know what our community needs, and we deserve more.
If my dad were still here, I think he would be proud. I think he knew that I was a go-getter. When I was in high school, I remember asking my dad, well, what happens if I got into Harvard? Could I go if I got in, if I applied? And my dad said, yeah. He never put any limits on what I could do or what should happen. And, I remember when I ran for, I think, class president, my dad chuckled, and I was like, I want to, do whatever. And I was like, okay, I was very motivated to get that done. And so, he was always someone who was cheering me on, so he would be proud.
And as I've stated before, now is our time. Let's get to work, Houston. Thank y'all.
I get that question all the time, who's backing you? And I'm very proud to say that I am backed by the people, and the people are who matter most to me. That's who you take an oath of office to serve. That is who has motivated me to get into service in this way. Is because of the impact that I can have on them. I could do what's politically expedient, or I could do what's right. And I think they know that I will do right by them no matter what. I'm not going to compromise their interests. I'm not going to compromise the community to advance myself politically. And I think it's important that people have leadership like that. And that is why we have the bulk of the community behind us. They've watched this journey. They have been the ones to suffer through this experience of not having representation. And so when we start telling the community members where they ought to go and who they ought to support, I think we should be careful and listen to them for a change. And I think if you listen to what the community is saying, they want somebody who isn't going to just show up during campaign season, but in fact, somebody who's going to deliver the change that they're looking for and deserve. 8 years ago, Harvey hit Houston. It was 51 inches of rainfall. At the time, it was the second worst disaster in U.S. history. And I remember getting a phone call to check on some of our seniors, and I did. And I went and I checked, and I learned that a lot of them, they were cleaning up their houses, mopping the floors, getting their grandkids to take the furniture out. But when it came down to the walls that had been soiled by the flood water, they were leaving those intact. And you say, well, wait a minute, you can't leave those walls up? And they'd say, well, why not? They're already dry. And of course, like I know, you can't leave walls that have been soiled by flood water, you're gonna get mold. So that broke my heart. But of course, I wasn't elected to be brokenhearted. I'm elected to do something. So we began to mobilize. And so we mobilized hundreds of volunteers, we went to hundreds of homes. We went door to door. When we get tips on areas that had high concentrations of lower income seniors that had been affected by the storm, that was right for that kind of situation. So I would go knocking on those doors, and I'll never forget when I would step foot on the doorstep, and I always have some kind of city council shirt on, a jacket, something so they know I wasn't some kind of, somebody trying to scam them. You can't be in the business of exploiting people's pain, and a lot of people have a lot of pride. They don't want you to know what they've been enduring. They don't want you to see their home and how they're living because they don't want to be judged. So you go in there with a camera crew, they'll tell you, no, I don't need any help, because they don't want to be on the 6 o'clock news like that. So you have to also appreciate that it's, you got to take a break from some of that stuff sometimes. And I just, wanted to make sure trust came first for me. And so I remember knocking on those doors, and the first thing they'd ask me when I would step foot on the doorsteps is, what are you doing here? And I'd say, I'm your city council member. I'm here to help. And they'd say this in response, which is the kicker. They'd say this, but wait a minute, are you up for re-election already? And the question in context is heartbreaking, right? Because it means that you couldn't expect me to ever show up for you when it was time for me to actually do something for you, and that the only time that I'm gonna stand foot on your doorstep must be when I need something from you, like a vote, as opposed to me being there to do my job because that's what you sent me into office to do. And that was heartbreaking to really realize that we've conditioned our community to believe that they only have value to us when it's campaign season. And so I've been resolved to be a part of reversing that course in terms of not just showing up, but delivering. When I first ran and won city council, I remember not getting the endorsement of the paper, not because I had not worked hard or wasn't qualified, but there was another candidate in the race that had paid more political dues. And I think that really upset a lot of my supporters in that race. And so it had the effect of activating them. And they said, what can we do to help? And so it got them energized to help me. And we ended up making that campaign not about me, but about people, about their issues, about solutions. And that's what matters most. That's what you're sending someone to office to do. And we ended up getting so much support. We had more votes than anyone running when I took office, anyone else running for a municipal seat at that time. And so it was a big success. And so when I got in, I knew I had a lot of work to do, and a lot of people were counting on me. And so I started the work around technology and innovation. I had a wonderful experience serving as an at-large city council member. And it did not come without challenges. Nothing comes without challenges. But it was a remarkable experience in terms of the ability to serve and have an impact on the community in the ways that I was able to have.